Hi there. My name is Jo Sabo, and I'm a teacher for the deaf and hard of hearing around the province. And putting together this little in-service just basically to give you some basic information. I've left an email down below. If you have any further questions or comments or concerns, then please don't hesitate to email. Um, and let's try and go through this as efficiently because I know time goes, doesn't it? So you can read this as well as I can say it, but in summary, we do want to make sure we go through some general anatomy, and then so you understand where hearing issues kind of take place in the hearing process. Want to make sure you understand a little bit more about audiograms. Often they just land on your desk, and okay, what does what mean? There are the different types and levels of hearing loss, but hearing differences. And actually, I keep trying to change the new politically correct instead of saying loss. So you might hear me double, double say the same kind of thing there. But now we're saying hearing differences opposed to hearing loss. You need to hear some hearing simulations. I think I've got some good ones to kind of help you put yourself in the shoes of someone thinking then about the auditory fatigue that's whether it's a child or an adult has from continuing to listen through amplification. We want to also go through some of the ministry supports that would support you and the teacher of the deaf. Just some of them you just need to be aware of and know too that you can contact them also if need be, and which ties into the role and support of the TDHH and ways that you can then help support students in your school or classroom. I wrote at the bottom, if time, a short Kahoot, but um, try not to be a chitter chatter, but I tend to. So I think I'll probably be sending you the Kahoot, and you can do that at your own leisure, just for some fun to check your understanding. And you can always again email me and give me some feedback, whether you have a suggestion and the such. So I need to quickly move here. Um, Children with hearing loss, they really do miss more than we think and they think. um, there is a small video explaining a little bit more about this kind of information. I'll put it on the end of the PowerPoint as an extra resource because, again, I know we're strapped for time. But if I were to summarize it, what Karen Anderson is one of the deaf and hard of hearing gurus in North America, and so visually, if a child has a problem, we add some glasses, or increase the font, and they can read it easier. Hearing aids aren't exactly the same thing, so if someone has a hearing loss, you kind of like, what are they trying to say? So we add some, whether it be a hearing aid or Baha or cochlear implant, and a lot of times that helps them. It gives them exactly, but not always fully clear. So that's where we add in the visuals, be it pointing to the teacher's desk if you weren't as clear as to what I was trying to write in there. So pointing to an item whenever possible. It's always the visual. That's when it comes down to the tips. We're going to keep talking about use visuals whenever you can. I left this little story on the side. Some of you might have tried to read it already. Can you kind of tell me what it's about? Once upon a time, a itty mouse went to visit an country mouse. The country mouse live in a field. So, I mean, you can read the rest yourself, but but the point there as kind of a simulation is that kids will hear that or hear the story, know that someone's talking and they're listening and they're kind of going, oh, okay, it's about an itty house. What's an itty house? Well, sometimes they just kind of pretend they know what you're talking about. So really, that's something I want you to be aware of as we go through some of the simulations, just what kids are hearing. And if you haven't figured out about the city mouse going to visit the country mouse, then, um, getting that extra little information, probably all I had to do was say city mouse and right away you knew, oh, okay, yes, yes. And it's the same for some of these kids. So hearing aids, Bahas, cochlear implants, sound field systems, they help to make it a little more clear. They amplify it, but it's not always fully clear. So we can't always depend on that piece. So the basic anatomy, the basic how we hear. So as the sound comes into the ear canal, hits the eardrum, as a quick explanation, it starts the vibrations of hitting the eardrum starts the three ossicles, the three little bones in motion, the hammer, the anvil, or the stirrup, or the malleus and the incus and the stapes, depending how old your students are. um, as that starts the motion, and if all is well in the middle ear, the vibrations split second into the oval window into the cochlea. Now, quite often, this is where a lot of the issues um, occur for our hearing aid users, and it's the nerve endings in the cochlea that have either become damaged or hereditarily, they students are born without the fully developed all the fully developed nerve endings, and as the sound waves kind of travel through the cochlea up through the auditory to the nerve, if all is functioning well, that's good. But for our children, it can happen in kind of the two different areas, whether it be in the middle ear or the inner ear. And if you hear of or read on a report and they talk about conductive, that's typically here in the middle ear, um, be it a hole in the eardrum or misformed three little bones. Sometimes doctors can surgically fix that and get that back in motion. Tubes that help to drain the excess fluid or any kind of other medication. So that's typically conductive, that's temporary. Not to say that temporary always can be temporary. There are cases where a student might have a conductive loss and over time it never repairs or gets better. So I guess in that sense it becomes permanent, but it's indicated as a conductive because it's in the middle ear. The inner ear, typically always sensory. Well, it's sensory neural. It's permanent. You might hear of cochlear implants. Um, that's where, though, if they implant the electrode, which is a whole other discussion, but when they, implant the um, the electrode into the cochlea, the challenge there is that that can uh, clear off any residual, any hearing that you typically did have with any of your shorter nerve endings and the such. So they take cochlear implants very seriously, whether or not they're going to implant someone or not. Typically, as we get later on into our little discussion on the audiogram, when someone has a profound loss and won't benefit from hearing aids, then, then they would consider this. Okay, so and a mix, there are mixed. You could have a mixture of the two. But again, the vocabulary around sensory neural, permanent in the inner ear, conductive, temporary. Okay, so I've moved myself down out of the way so that you can read if you so choose. But here's what a typical, not everyone will get an exact, but along this lines, audiogram. And so what I tend to do is I like to transfer it to what we call a familiar sounds hearing loss, hearing audiogram. And so you can see here they have the speech sounds on there, and that to me gives the visual. So we take the X and the O from the audiogram, and you can see if you could visualize the audiologist um, is able then to kind of put some gain. The hearing aid might bring, if I were to put A for hearing aids, I might have some A's kind of just up here in the same kind of slope or curve, just indicating that, and that brings that up. So here on this one, if the hearing aids are, if I kind of follow the same kind of slope, then they can kind of bring that up this way. Okay, so you can imagine, like I think I was saying on the last slide, if someone has a profound loss down here, way at the bottom, then how high, how much gain or amplification can they give the student? And so will they hear those speech sounds? So it's this, you might hear it referred to as a speech banana, um, and the such, but they need to hear these speech sounds in order to make sense of the of what they're hearing. And put that all together, auditory fatigue, background noise plays a lot in their ability to hear what's been said. So again, they're only hearing what's below these lines without their assistive listening devices. And if you could visualize that line, again, it's still with the hearing aids, it's still everything just below. Okay. I'll leave myself at the bottom here. Uh, there are those different levels. Okay. And not to be taken, like if we say someone has a mild hearing loss, they can sometimes have just as much of a challenge with their reading and their writing as someone with a moderate to severe. Someone with a moderate to severe or moderate loss seems to go along quite easily. So who can kind of decipher why that is, but just because someone has a mild, and I've heard some discussions on that, like why do we even use that word mild? Because it right away makes you think, oh, it's just a little hearing loss. They're fine. But sometimes that is not the case. So we need to kind of be aware, like know whereabouts what sounds they're hearing, but at the same time, um, be aware that it just because they are hearing all those sounds doesn't mean they're processing all those sounds. So again, just to help you with the audiogram to make sure you're understanding, your normal hearing, up in like the 10 dB, mild here between like 25 and 35, 40, 50 comes into the moderate, and these are the decibel levels. So when you're looking at an audiogram, and let's use this one, I'm going to continue on this one here. The top of the audiogram is talking about frequency or pitch, and so that's kind of low sounds up to high sounds. And the decibels are then here down the side. Let me go back to this side one over here. And it's, yes, the soft sounds down to the loud. Not totally sure why I put both of these in here, but I think I like the color coding here. That kind of goes, oh, okay, so as we get to them kind of in here. So back to here, the familiar sounds, it has some of the items, which again, helps hopefully you understand, the rustling of leaves. Of course, that's at the 0 dB. Birds chirping, that's that higher pitch sound. Later on, we'll kind of add in and talk about, the challenges behind a high frequency loss. It just missing those, how it kind of is an obstacle for students with their spelling, and because they don't hear the vowel sounds right. It distorts them. While I'm on that topic, often a teacher might say, "Oh, well, I talk really loud," you know, but again, there's distortion. The vowel sounds come out louder than the consonant sounds, and are they hearing those words properly? Also, so it's a little trickier than sometimes people assume it to be, and always be aware kids are excellent at bluffing and trying to fudge their way through or just pretending that they did hear it and not asking for clarification. And so are we sometimes, aren't we? Okay, so speech perception. You'll see that also on the audiogram. And here, if you look, so again, some are a little bit different on each one. But if we look here on the side here at the 50 dB level, I don't know if you can see here on my picture of me behind me, there's my 50. So they're kind of saying at this 50 dB level, when presented with words, they got 76% right. At the 35, they got only 52% right without their hearing aids. So that this particular student. So again, all of these are without hearing aids. This is a different student and a different health unit paper, but along see they've taken the right ear and the left ear and the aided ear. And you can see then This student here had quite a bit more accuracy at the different recognizing words and being able to clearly repeat back what they had heard. So when they're always trying to test that. So that's just that extra little piece there. So when you look, I actually should go back. I'm going to send you this one. And what I was thinking and wondering is that I'm going to send this as a Word document. You can get them off the internet also. I look for familiar sounds audiogram. But if you were to transfer, let me go back to this one. You take the student's audiogram, transfer those X's and O's on the same grid. Look down the frequency and at the decibel level. So here at 250, we go at about 35. So at 250, go at about 35 and then put that X and O and then continue on. I think you get the idea of what I was doing there. Okay, so I really encourage you to do that. I find for myself too, it really does visually help right away. Yeah. So I mentioned on the top there, we're using the phrase hearing levels opposed to hearing loss. And it's not that hearing loss is such a terrible word, but when we think back, we used to always say hearing impaired and then the connotations around impaired. So I'm going to try and transition myself to hearing levels and I was going to say and the such. I do say that a lot and the such, but I want to show you here. I've got, again, I'll send this PowerPoint to you, but we will play this one here showing the different hearing levels. What's not as ideal is some ways are they just lowering the temperature or lowering the volume. So let me click that here. Let you listen for yourself.
I read in the newspaper today that a new theatre is opening. Isn't it great?
Sure is. What plays are they showing?
I think it'll be the one we saw last year. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. Do you want to go and see it again?
The play is so good, it'll probably be worth it.
You're right. It's always interesting to see if they do it a different way.
The director is relatively unknown as well.
These new directors usually have a different perspective of showing things too. We should see that play.
Good. Let's ask some friends. I'll find out who's interested.
Okay.
I guess we'll have some time to make arrangements, right? The theatre won't open for another 4 months, but I'm sure they'll start selling tickets soon. In that case, we should buy the tickets. They'll sell out fast. Right, let's find it good.
Okay, I've shifted things a little bit because I realized I'd had the classroom listening simulation just as a link and then it goes to another web page. But these two here, the reason I mention that is these two, if you click on there when you have the PowerPoint later, you can watch it on a separate tab. Otherwise, I'll start this one here. So this one gives us the different levels. And this one I like, even though they're using Roger Phonak, there's Oticon, there's Simian, there's Front Row to Go, there's different kind of amplification devices and such, but this one is just Roger, but it's along the same lines. So this one here is 7 minutes. I'm not sure if we'll get to the whole thing.
Hi, and welcome to our listening simulation. This is a classroom demonstration to show how students with hearing loss hear in the classroom despite noise and with the added benefit of Roger. You're currently listening to me through a pair of Sky MM 70 level hearing aids. They are programmed to a 30 dB flat loss, and they're being routed through the claim finder directly into the camera. Right now, my voice is only being heard through the hearing aids. While I am wearing a Roger touchscreen mic, you can tell that it's muted because of the flashing red light. We know for students with hearing loss wearing their hearing technology, be it hearing aids, CIs, VAHAs, for their full wakeful day is critical, but unfortunately those devices aren't enough in the modern classroom. because there we have teachers who are moving around the classroom throughout the day and teaching as they go. We have peers discussing and learning from each other. And we have multimedia that augments the lessons. And studies have shown that classrooms can be as loud as 65 to 75 dB. That's as loud as a running vacuum cleaner. I've been trying to learn in that. So for our first simulation, we're actually going to turn on some classroom noise at 70 dB, and it'll be playing through a Bluetooth speaker. Today, children, we are going to learn about space exploration. With the Artemis project, NASA will land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024, using innovative technologies to explore more of the lunar surface than ever. Now, I've unmuted the touchscreen mic, and I'm going to reteach that passage. I want you to think about the speech intelligibility and the level of effort that you have to put in to hear it. Today, children, we're going to learn about space exploration. With the Artemis project, NASA will land the first woman and the next man on the moon by 2024, using innovative technologies to explore more of the lunar surface than ever before. In the second part of the simulation, we're going to consider what happens in an interactive classroom when students have questions, but only the teacher has a microphone. Okay, class, we are going to conclude our unit on space this Friday with an exam, so this is your time to ask me any questions that you might have. Yes, Steve?
Is the test going to be open?
It will not be. So we're going to do that again now, and the next time Steve is going to use the pass-around mic. Okay, class, we are going to conclude our unit on space this Friday. Does anyone have any questions?
Is the test going to be open note?
No, it won't be, Steve. Now, for our student with hearing loss, they may not have heard Steve's question the first time around, or they may have misunderstood my answer. So that's where the pass-around mic becomes very helpful. This last part of the simulation, we're going to consider how multimedia interacts with the modern classroom. Our multimedia hub can be plugged into any instructional media source. And you know what, so can our touchscreen mic, so you might be wondering, why do I need a multimedia hub if I already have a touchscreen mic? Where this device becomes helpful is if the class is going to be watching a video and the teacher is going to be talking during the video. So let's take a listen to how this works if only the touchscreen mic is plugged into the computer. Class, in our exam on Friday, this video is going to be 10% of your score, so I want you to pay close attention to it. It's a speech by President Kennedy, and there's some facts and figures in here.
Space will go, and it is one of the great adventures of all time. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind. For we meet in an hour of change, in a decade of hope, in an age of knowledge. Even though I realize that this is, in some measure, an act of faith and vision, for we do not now know what benefits await us. But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon, 240,000 miles away, a giant rocket carrying all the equipment needed for survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, and do all this and do it right before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
Let's try that listening simulation one more time with the multimedia hub plugged in, and me wearing the teacher mic again.
Exploration of space will go ahead, and it is one of the great adventures of all time. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind.
That's President Kennedy's voice.
For we meet in an hour of change, in a decade of hope, in an age of knowledge. Even though I realize that this is, in some measure, an act of faith and vision, for we do not now know what benefits await us.
Who is
But
this,
if I
guys?
were to
He's
say, my
important for the
fellow
test.
citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away,
240,000
giant
miles
rocket,
away,
carrying all the equipment needed for survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour,
25,000
and
miles
do
an hour.
all this and do it right before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
We must be bold. So there's a special feature in Roger technology that mixes these signals together. So that way students, all the students, can have access to both the teaching input of the instructional media and of the teacher's voice. Classrooms today are busy, and they are complex listening environments. These Roger transmitters that we've listened to today, they're not luxury items for students with hearing loss. They're in fact critical to be sure that they have the same access to all the learning the classroom has to provide that their normal hearing peers hear as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please let us know if you have any questions.
So this almost ties into part of the role of the TDHH. You know your students best. Your high school students, if they're going into classrooms where there is a lot of multimedia going on. We need to probably get one of these hubs in, and depending on the students' hearing aids, what needs to be purchased. But again, it's that equal access piece. Okay, so my next little piece here, I'm not sure if we're going to have time. I'll put this in and take it out later if we need it. But what I like about this is that now you have hopefully a little bit more of an understanding about the low speech sounds to high pitch, and then the decibel from soft to loud. You can see here some of the speech sounds. They've taken away some of the speech sounds. So this is kind of the presentation I like to give. We'll just do 3 of the words. I like to do this in a classroom too because it's a little interactive for the kids. They think they're having a spelling test. And so just listen to the first 3 words. Darn, it went backwards. I got to click right on there, I think.
Word number 1, shoe. Word number 2, tree. Word number 3, math.
Okay, so we could continue on again with the PowerPoint. You can listen to them all. We've increased some more speech sounds, so does it make it a little easier? Let's see.
Word number 1, shoe. Word number 2, tree. Word number 3, math.
So I'm guessing many of you probably got quite a few of them. Word number 1 was shoe. Word number 2 was tree. Word number 3 was math. And so I'm going to try and slip by this next one really quickly
Word number
because
one.
it
Word
kind of
number
adds,
2. Word number.
look at, I have to go through all of them to get to the end. Sorry about that. And anyway, time escapes. And I wanted to make sure we had some time to talk about ministry supports. So again, in tying with the role of the TDHH, the auditory outreach is where we get all our equipment and borrowing forward from the ministry, the FMDM. FM meaning frequently modulation, DM digital. So now many of us oldies keep saying FM because we're just used to that. But it really has gone from frequency to digital. So that's why the change there, digital. A lot of us sometimes do FMDM slash. If your student has cochlear implants, there's a few more services that the ministry provides with an SLP and the such. And there I go again, and the such. But here is the link. If you were to click on here, that would take you to Auditory Outreach, or just Google Auditory Outreach. It is hosted by Powell River School District. Forms are key for everything here, like in any organization. Have to make sure you've got your PIN numbers, the equipment, and the signatures that are thus then needed. Anytime we're requesting new equipment or lost equipment, it'll indicate whether or not we need an updated audiogram, parent permission. But I think that's all very clear. Time-wise, I don't want to go into that too much because this would be more the TDH's role to obtain that. If you don't have one in locally, a lot of it can be done online, but and or by yourselves. But don't hesitate to connect with your TDHH to help you fill out those forms. The repairs, as you can guess, if it's hosted in Powell River, they all need to get sent back there. So per later, it's a fairly easy online process or phone to phone them up and have it shipped. Typically, yeah, we know we really want to make sure we troubleshoot everything. There's some really good videos on auditory outreach, and it will also then sometimes just a phone call um, to Melanie at Outreach. She can sometimes talk us through some of the troubleshooting. But if we exhausted everything and you know we can't fix it, it's not just a wonky cord or battery or something simple, then we send it back. And then sometimes it does need to come back via Canada Post. It should be back within 3 to 5 days. I say should because in an ideal world, but just know that sometimes it's more. So, there is not backup equipment available. 30 years ago there was, but then you can imagine the duplication of all equipment for backup. But we just know that's where we really want to troubleshoot, maybe look through some of those videos or call first. So that's auditory outreach as a ministry support. Provincial outreach program for the deaf and hard of hearing. I've put some extra links in here. Some great ASL videos to kind of share with some of the kids. Don't hesitate to connect with them. Also, I obtain the newsletter to make sure I know if there's anything happening. For example, typically every April, there's a Deaf and Hard of Hearing Connections Week. And for example, this past year, we all tried to get on Zoom and they brought in Max the Mime to do a little bit of a workshop. Years past, we've got all the deaf and hard of hearing students in the province that are able to congregate like at Science World, or we did Burnaby Village and the such. So who knows, now that we've had the Zoom, maybe we can connect a bit of the both. I guess we'll see, but I know as a teacher of the deaf, I access POP DHH quite consistently, for different resources that I might want to use or need. ASL courses are opening up for all deaf and hard of hearing students and EA for support. And recently, Tamara Lissa has started an after school program that would kind of expand upon everything that we're saying here right now in this short time. I think it's a 4-week. I better get my details on that, but something like that. Now, I can't find my little arrow. Come on. Hate that when that happens. Where did it go? Anyway, we're on to the next page. A few other government services, ministry-wise, these are great for parents to totally know about. I know typically I might have the odd question. Lately, they just did a fabulous webinar on listening fatigue for parents and teachers and families. And so they'll put on services, they'll support the family. Same with deaf well-being. It can be initiated from the school or the parent. But do again, get your TDHH involved and they can help with the referral process to kind of make that connection. If you were finding that your student could utilize some mental health services, the signing services are kind of more the provincial family services up above. And I'm cognizant of the time and I'm so sorry. I know I'm probably going to start to rush through this, but this is just take one and I'll maybe redo it over the summer. But you've probably all seen, or many of you have seen or will see the category F funding allocation page. We work through this again, brings in the role of we PDHHs. We would then need to kind of, I don't want to say sign off, but be ticked off as the qualified teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing to provide the services to help in the conversing around the most appropriate goals around the hearing loss. And as the team, you all develop, one person might be more in tune with the reading levels of that particular student. Are there particular goals that need to be brought in that way? Typically, in my experience, direct service is minimum 2 times per month. When working with a full district, I know we try to see our students weekly. It just varies on different situations. If you're bringing in the private schools, sometimes you're bringing in that SLP. So if there's that regular SLP or OT, it's that whole team effect, isn't it? I find that when there's the different pieces, how do we work together? We've got to always figure that out in each different situation. But to access the funding, the TDH being, a good component of the team. And so then again, if I'm that particular TDHH, I need to make sure I'm in regular communication with the on-site case manager. So that is very, very key. I will also kind of maybe send this off. Well, no, I guess if I'm sending you the PowerPoint, you don't need it also. But those then are the different categories. Our role, we've got to really help with that equipment management, making sure you as the individuals in the school are aware how to use it. Someone maybe has more experience or more comfortability with troubleshooting. So we really need to make sure that when that equipment goes down, it gets fixed. The equipment needs to be checked regularly. We can't, even the older students, we can't always depend on them to notify us or to even indicate, because sometimes if it's just like a slow decrease, like it's like when someone's losing weight, you yourself don't notice it. It's that drastic change. So they may not even notice that there's something wonky going on with their equipment, that the quality isn't as clear as it could be. So so that would be key there. Totally, I feel my role is guiding self-advocacy for these kids and really helping them develop, giving them the vocabulary, the voice to kind of advocate for themselves. Listening and language support, again, that depends on each particular student, doesn't it? What areas they need the support, I guess, as you're developing the IEP together. Most of us are certified to do that level B testing. Again, if you have an SLP, that's ideal too. So we have some good testing in the files. Not that you work for the audit, but that is one of the requirements, that we have some testing to kind of show the needs, to show where we're working, and to show progress. Pending service time, depending on the student, supporting the academic is just as key, because we're helping them build their vocabulary. So kind of tying some of those things together. I myself find that classroom presentation teacher in service, if you're in a brick building, that is so key. We can just tick off quite a few boxes with one hour presentation to help the students understand, to kind of reiterate to the classroom teacher. And then the last kind of point I have there is working with the team around all accommodations. And again, each student is a little bit different, aren't they? Which ones they need. Come on, it worked the last time when I clicked there. There we go. So classroom accommodations, I'm going to attach these also to your, to the email, or to kind of however we're sending this as a package. The main things here: talking in a normal voice, face them so it's easier for lip reading, limit, background noise, try not to cover your mouth, anything to minimize. Shape of the day, it's so key to have that kind of little list, even just, it's just the words, they know what's coming. And if there's another adult in the room, they can kind of ask for clarification, or ask you for clarification. Is there something that can be pre-taught that can be brought to light? Amplification equipment, as I said, sometimes it's the cords get get wonky and you can end up with a bit of a scratchy noise. Again, be aware of all background noises, fans, hallways, just chatter. Under number 5, the seating, it's interesting that you really, connect with that student. Some of them love to be right at the very front. That's what works for them. Others like to be on the side so they can kind of visually glance to see who's talking. So we really have to kind of give that student the voice to kind of say what it is that works best for them. Number 6, visual aids, of course, whenever you can. Closed captioning, same thing. If you have a video, they typically will miss 75% of that content. Back to the video of the Roger Phonak type system, you can see, without that multimedia, if the teacher's talking over it, again, they miss. And again, it's that equal access. A couple more there, processing time, speaking one at a time. And here a few, you'll start to notice in some literature, you'll see small d, big D. So that being, if you are the deaf and hard of hearing group, but the capital D if you are profoundly deaf and using sign. But here you can see really, even with their hearing aids, it's really only 3 to 6 feet. So this is why we do discourage any distraction such as the rubbing on scarves or jewelry. As I mentioned before, FM is the same thing as DM. So here I've just put DM, use it whenever you can. Assemblies are good, but it's the acoustics. Like you would think as a hearing person, the assemblies and gym time. But again, let the student take the lead on this. So there's something about the acoustics within a gym that some students, it's just too much stimulation. So let them give you some feedback there, whether it's helpful for them or not. And then I think I can let you read through much of this on your own. And so I do have the Kahoot challenge at the bottom, and I'll try and update that. So because I don't know if you know Kahoot well, but you can only kind of, I think maybe 6 weeks ahead. So I will try and keep it an active challenge. And if not, and you wanted to try it, please do just email and I can reactivate it. And last page here, right now there's just 3. I need to add a few more, but I wanted to get this videoed and I can keep adding this as need be. But some other resources, a unilateral loss for your information, just the hearing loss in one ear. Importance, this I found quite powerful, what it's like to read lips. So I think it was a National Geographic filmed film, so well worth your time, and what does a cochlear implant. So I'll add a few more to there before we probably send this out. But again, hope it was helpful. We've attached a little bit of a reflection sheet. If you could fill that out, then that would be very muchly appreciated. Okay, thank you.